So we've been looking at the books that we read for this unit through the early lists that are in Essentials of Children's Literature, which is identified here as ECL. Throughout the rest of all of our readings, ECL means Essentials in Children's Literature. Now, let's look at the table 2.1 from our book and use that to evaluate very briefly Milo Imagines a World. We're not going to use the entire table because these tables aren't, say, scientific processes that need to be followed. Instead, these are just different perspectives or ways to evaluate, and a couple of different points is usually about all you need. So, using this table, let's begin with an NPR article where it quotes De La Peña's single-sentence summary of the book. He says, it's about a boy who's a budding artist, looking at all the people around him with interest and imagining the way their lives pass to get through the time on the subway. Illustrator Christian Robinson adds several layers of complexity to this through his illustrations. And perhaps the reason for this is that this is a story that reflects Robinson's own childhood, according to the NPR article. He grew up with siblings and cousins and an aunt in his grandmother's one-bedroom Los Angeles apartment, and he was often visiting his mother, who was frequently interned at the local penitentiary. Like Milo, he took control of his own chaotic world through drawings, expressing both his fear and illustrating new realities for himself. So understanding that personal backstory for the illustrator as well as the author, let's think about these levels of complexity, which is something that anyone who is introducing a kid to literature needs to be thinking about. So first of all, what are the different purposes and layers of meaning? Well, we've got the one-sentence summary, which is this is someone riding on a subway thinking about what's going on with the people around him. So one of the purposes could be understanding your world and the people who are in it. That's important in children's lit. The images, however, deepen the reader's understanding of what's going on. And those images can be interpreted by children in a variety of different ways. Some readers might pick up on Milo's psychological state, on the way his illustrations represent his fears and his own insecurities. Others might just see that he's imagining different stories. By putting that in illustration symbolically rather than putting that explicitly in text, Robinson and De La Peña leave the interpretation open to the child reader and to the adult reader, who is frequently enjoying the story with them. The structure is a lot more complex than either Journey or We Don't Eat Our Classmates, which just kind of follow a single line of thought. This, although there is a single event happening, which is riding the subway train, getting off at the last stop, and visiting your mother, also is intersected by all these different imagined realities, which are then sort of reversed at the very end when Milo realizes that some of his assumptions had been wrong, and he questions himself. That sort of structure is very complex for a young reader and might need an adult helper to explain what are the different things that are going on here. On the other hand, it's also something that the child reader can grow into, experiencing this and learning this as they are able to understand these concepts. But the other thing that our complexity list, brings up is that you need to take into consideration the reader. That's very important with a text like Milo Imagines the World because it deals with a sensitive topic. It's a topic that illustrator Christian Robinson lived through, and he's drawing this to connect with other readers who share his life experiences. who know what it is to have absent parents, to feel conflicting emotions being separated from these parents, and what he talks about as the shame and guilt and fear that a child of an incarcerated parent feels, sort of internalizing and projecting their parents' crime onto themselves, which is just a reflection of his own experience. So, in considering whether or not you would read this text to a group or have it on a shelf, you need to know who is in your audience. Are there people in your audience who would find this encouraging, or would this be triggering for them? And that's something you can only decide on a case-by-case basis, which is what children's literature is about, as Chapter 2 very clearly brings out. What is right for one reader isn't right for another reader, and determining how and when and negotiating this is the art of introducing children to literature and helping them know that they're not alone, while at the same time not triggering them with things that might be sensitive. So, thinking about all of these things, bring it into what you might do with children's literature and how you might analyze it going forward in our different projects. And next, we are going to wrap up with choosing some books for the rest of the semester. So see you in a minute.